All right, it looks like we're live. Just let me know if you can hear me. I think I'm live right now. So we're going to look at central banking today a little bit. We're going to do the usual Q&A. So central banking has become the most gigantic trust on the planet. I'm going to go through what that term really means, a trust. It's not that we trust central banks. So yeah, let me know, guys. I see there's quite a few of you already on the chat. Let me know if you can hear me. So we've got over here, Jeff Logue says the U.S. Mint hasn't produced a single coin in over 3 weeks. Yeah, just let me know, guys, if you can hear me. If we're live, I think we are. Hi, Grow Mechanic. Just, yeah, great. It's just I wasn't getting any reaction. Just wanted to make sure it was working. I'll wait to talk about the central banks in a couple of minutes. We are a little early as usual. I see Savoy Truffle says, isn't odd that just a few weeks ago there was a dearth of silver product online. Then suddenly the dealers heard about the Reddit kitties raid and surprised there's so much product everywhere. Yeah, that's strange, Savoy Truffle, that you say that, because then you've got Alan Zibelman, Zibelman saying that Silver Eagles are going for $10 over the spot price. So that doesn't make sense. I bought some silver on Friday, and I'm going to have to wait 5 days for them just to process the purchase. They have the silver apparently, but they've just been buried in orders. So I think there's a big change. We're seeing also silver and gold, for that matter, draining out of the SLV, GLD, all the ETFs, while the prices, even though they're not spiking, they're not going down. And that's unusual. And I think a lot of people are waking up to the fact that the ETF market, futures market, all the synthetic unallocated markets are not real markets. So they're going to the physical. And I think, yes, the price might not change tonight when COMEX opens. But this is more of a longer term thing, even though I don't think it's going to last that much longer. Eventually, the bullion banks, if they want their futures market, the LBMA, to be relevant, they're going to have to let the price rise, because it's just right now we've got a two-tiered market. One where you've got a price for real gold and silver, and one where you don't. Hi, No, nice to see you. Yeah, Billy is here. He's been warming the sofa for tonight. That's his job. So we've got Cupid Stunt. Hi, Cupid Stunt. Lorraine Weymouth from Spain. She's in Spain. Not Jurassic Coast now. Mark Gutierrez. Alan Zibelman. Grow Mechanic. Hi, Grow Mechanic. Tony Iannone. Donald Best. Yeah, a lot of people on already. Let's see how many people we've got. We've got 115 people so far, it looks like. Hopefully we'll get some more. Super Seamster, thank you for the super chat. Sorry, it's no more. Thank you. Make a PO box for mailing. Yeah, I'm not sure I can get a PO box. I have to check with the local post office. But if you really want to send me something, send it to Gold Investments, Oliver Temple. Send it to Gold Investments, care of Mario Neko. And yeah, and he'll keep whatever you send for me. and when I go there, I can pick it up. Someone sent me some old coins to Gold Investments. That would be the best way. I don't have a post office box. Savoy Truffle, when will Britain formally change her name to Taxation Island? Um, well, I don't think it's only Britain that has high taxes. Everywhere around the world, I think we have high taxes. Inflation is a tax. It's everywhere. I think if Britain's changed its name to Taxation Island, and I'm not defending Britain, I mean the U.S. should change its place as well to Land of the tax slaves or something like that, because it's not Land of the free. Um, you see, Biden wants to raise taxes. You already have quite a lot of taxes in the States. Europe is even worse. I think in France, government spending is more than 50% of GDP. It's getting worse here too. So I don't think any country escapes, really. I think one of the countries where taxation is quite low is in Russia. But of course, Russia is our enemy, right? Russia does everything wrong. Putin is a dictator. Well, there's a flat rate of tax in Russia. I think it's around 13%. That's what everyone pays. I think that's pretty fair and uniform. Super Seamster, will do. Thank you again for all your teaching. You're welcome. Alan Zibbelman says, don't borrow to invest. I tend to agree with that. Definitely. Yeah. Try to pay off your debts first, if you have any, and then you can start accumulating savings. And then you might. And when I look at savings, I look at it as real money, gold and silver. And then after that, you can start investing. You can apply, put that money to work if you want in a business that you know about, or in an asset where you can get some income. It's up to the individual. It doesn't mean you have to go into the stock market and buy a stock just because it's popular. Maybe invest in your family, your children, or nephews or nieces if they need help, if they have a good idea, if they're willing to work hard. No tax in North Korea. There you go, Rumpelstiltskin. Yeah, but yeah, I haven't been to North Korea, but we're told that it's not a very nice place. I have to say, it's a bit extreme. There's no tax, but there's not much going for it, I would say. So let's look at the central banking. And the reason I wanted to look into that is that I really like this quote here. I'm going to share it with you guys here now. Let's have a look. Oh, here we go. This is from Charles Lindbergh Sr. Yeah, he was the father of the aviator, Charles Lindbergh, the guy who flew across the Atlantic solo. I think it was in 1927. He flew on the Spirit of St. Louis from, I think, Long Island to Paris. That was the flight. But his father was a congressman from Minnesota. I think he was originally born in Sweden, Charles Lindbergh Sr. And this is what he said about the Federal Reserve. And he warned, he was a congressman at the time, and he warned against the Federal Reserve Act. And he said, this act, the Federal Reserve Act, December 23rd, 1913, establishes the most gigantic trust on earth. When the president signs this bill, the invisible government of the monetary power will be legalized. The people may not know it immediately, but the day of reckoning is only a few years removed. I think it took more than a few years, of course. It's definitely, the day of reckoning is definitely here, not just for the United States, but for the whole world, because the Federal Reserve is really now the central bank for the whole world. The trusts will soon realize that they have gone too far, even for their own good. The people must take a declaration of independence to relieve themselves from the monetary power. This they will be able to do by taking control of Congress. Wall Streeters could not cheat us if your senators and representatives did not make a humbug of Congress. The greatest crime of Congress is its currency system. The worst legislative crime of the ages is perpetrated by this banking bill. The caucus and the party bosses have again operated and prevented the people from getting the benefit of their own government. So yeah, that that's sums up what's happened over the last 100 years plus. Um, I think yeah, informing people, educating them, and I know it's a long, hard slug, a long, hard battle, uphill battle that we have. But I think we're making progress, and the network effect can multiply very quickly. I mean, 15, 20 years ago, I was already aware of this system and how, I was already aware of Charles Lindbergh Sr., but very few people wanted to know about this. And I know we have a relatively big community here, but we're only like a needle in the haystack, and hopefully we're going to keep growing. And so, what's the difference between a monopoly and a trust? Because I think one of the comments before we went live said, "How can you trust a central bank?" Well, let's look at the definition of a trust, so we can see. Differentiate that from a monopoly, because there is an important difference. So here we go. Trusts are the organization of several businesses in the same industry, and by joining forces, the trust controls production, distribution of a product or service, thereby limiting competition. Monopolies are businesses that have total control over a sector of the economy, including prices. So I would say the money trust is really controlling big businesses in all industries, and that's the difference. Let's say Microsoft might be a monopoly in the software industry, IT industry, but central banks, they control all different sectors. It's like a trust. It's like a big octopus. And I think so. That's the difference. That's what I mean by that, by trust. All right. Let's see some of your questions now. Super Seamster, sound money, sound money. Yeah. I think what we need as well, because money is a human, this monetary system itself is a human invention. So is money. And but we need to be honest. Without honesty, there's no sound money, of course. We have to think of money and value like weights and measures, I think. And of course, um, prices fluctuate, but through trial and error, human beings or society have found that there are some commodities that serve as a very stable store of value, that serve as money, and that's gold and silver. Yes, I'm a free market guy. Yeah, you could argue that it's Bitcoin or something that we haven't seen before, and I'm open to that. But we have to let the free market determine that, and we can't have government interfere. We can't let government give a monopoly to any kind of system. But I think the current system of central banking, that gives a monopoly to the central bank and the agent banks, the private banks that control the central banks, that own the central banks. And then we get also a fractional reserve, which is basically lending something you don't have. And I think that's a huge problem. It has indebted the world. There are some countries, of course, that have less debt than others, like Russia has very little national debt. But very few countries can say that, though. And I think someone also mentioned prior to going live about a book that I wasn't going to look into, but I actually have it. It's called "A History of Central Banking and the Enslavement of Mankind," Stephen Mitford Goodson. So here's the book. I'm going to go through it a little bit. Um, just a question here. Lord Humongous, have you heard anything on the IMF SDRs? Well, what I've heard in the last month or so is that they're going to allocate 650 billion of SDRs, and I think most of the that's going to go to the emerging market countries. So it's just more QE through the IMF. That's all it is. SDRs are just a basket of the major fiat currencies. They're not any better than SDRs, are even worse than fiat currencies because you don't really know who owes anything, as John Extra said. Uh, Yellow Wolf, is it a good idea to take a student loan with 0% with a payback period of 34 years and buy silver or gold with that? I mean, normally I would take the loan and spend it for girls and drinks. Well, um, I think the best thing to do if you want to go to university or, go to a graduate school or whatever is, yeah, not through that avenue of taking loans. I know it's hard. Not everyone can afford that, but no, I wouldn't do that. I don't think that's a good thing to borrow to buy gold. And if you're borrowing for an education, then you should use that money that you've borrowed to get a good education, not to buy gold and silver. Even though I think gold and silver are sound money. So let's just go through this book here, A History of Central Banking, and so what does it say in the back of the book? I'll just do a summary, and then I'm going to go on to a section that's really interesting, and it's called The Glorious Middle Ages. We think the Middle Ages were a really bad period for common people, but according to this book, it wasn't. So it says here, A History of Central Banking and the Enslavement of Mankind is Stephen Mitford Goodson's companion volume to Inside the South African Reserve Bank, Its Origins and Secrets Exposed. While the latter volume describes the mechanics of the fraudulent usury banking system. Yeah, the fraudulent usury banking is when you lend money out of thin air and you charge interest on something that doesn't exist. With a focus on Goodson's experiences as a director of the South Africa Reserve Bank, this volume expands the focus to encompass the role of banking and money in history from ancient times to present. So just take a sip of my water. Let me finish this here. I see someone commenting about used car prices. Yeah, they're going up big time, which is strange. Car prices never used to. They used to always go down because, especially in the UK, you pay the sales tax and you drive off with your new car, and it loses the value in terms of the sales tax. The role of money lenders in history was once aptly termed by more acute observers as the hidden hand. It is the power to create, lend, and accumulate interest on credit. So, interest on credit out of nothing, and then relend that interest for further interest in perpetuity that creates perversive worldwide debt from the individual to the family to the entire state. So yeah, that's the debt that we're under now. In the UK, it started as far back as I think 1692. That's when I think King William and Mary started the national debt. It was around 1 million. Now it's probably over 2 trillion. So it's crazy. In the US, the national debt was under a trillion back in 1981. And now it's on the way to 30 trillion very soon. Hi, Ben Gray. Not to worry. Uh, I guess you're going to have to go to the back of the classroom and turn around. Just joking. So it says here, let's continue. The ability to operate a fraudulent credit and loan system has long been known, and through all the slickness of snake oil salesmen, the moneylenders, the same types Jesus whipped from the temple, have persuaded governments that banking is best left to private interests. Well, it's not only private interests, it's private interests that are given a monopoly of issuing the currency and are given legal tender power. So it's I would say it's a private and banking and government interests. Many wars, revolutions, depressions, recessions, and other social upheavals have been directly related to the determination of these money lenders to retain and extend their power and profits. When any state, individual, or idea has threatened their scam, they have often responded with wars and revolutions. Well, there you go. And I think they're responding right now with the crisis that we've had since last year. And I'm not going to go into details that much because I don't need to, because I spoke a lot about this last year, that I think it's like a crisis, right? Just like the non-oil crisis from the 1970s that Lindsay Williams wrote a book about. So yes, and that's why all the central banks, even there's a guy at the Fed, I think it was Bullard, the St. Louis president. He said, "Oh, wearing masks now is like wearing a seatbelt." So they're all in it, these central bankers, and I think they're behind it because they're using this crisis as a substitute to a kinetic war, but they're taking away freedoms, just like we were in a big existential war, in my opinion. I might get censored because of what I'm saying, but I don't think so. We'll see, but it's the truth anyway. The cultural and material progress of a civilization will often relate to the degree by which it is free from the influence of debt and the degradation that results when the moneylenders are permitted to regain power. Hence, Goodson shows that both world wars, the Napoleonic Wars, the American Revolution, the rise and fall of Julius Caesar, the overthrow of Gaddafi in Libya, and the revolution against Tsar Nicholas, among much else, relate to this hidden hand in history. I guess he could add now what happened in the last year to this, right? This is the key to understanding the past, present, and future. So that's what this book is about. I recommend this book. I read it quite a while ago, but it's really a good book. And I'm going to go into a section about the Middle Ages, but right now I'll stop and have a look at some of your questions. Walking wardrobe, I agree with your number there, 99.9%. Totally agree. Mark Gutierrez, should we pay off mortgage if it's fixed or not and let it inflate? Well, the thing about mortgages is that if you feel that you're safe in terms of having a steady income and you can afford the mortgage and you're paying off as well, don't have interest only, then, yeah, there's not a problem with it. And yes, in the last 20, 30 years, mortgages have been written off. basically because house prices have gone up. But there have been periods like in '07 to '09 where house prices collapsed. And if you had a big mortgage back then, if you lost your job, you would have panicked and probably declared bankruptcy, or just walk away from your home. And then and then a year or two later everything picks up again. That's the danger of it. So if you can go through the ups and downs, yeah, over the long term, fiat currencies and mortgages will be written off. uh, the problem is that they've inflated everything so much these days. They haven't let the housing really correct for that long. We had the '08 collapse, but a few years later, everything was back to normal, and now it's even higher. That I'm concerned that the next time it turns again, it could be really sharp and a lot longer than it was. So that's what I have to say about that. Um, if possible, I would, yeah, sell the house, pay off the mortgage, and try to move somewhere cheaper where you can buy a home without a mortgage, if that's possible. Bill Dell says gold investments still have silver eagles. They do. I mean, whatever gold investment shows on their website as having, they do, and they ship it the next day or 2 days later. So yeah, use my promo code Monaco64. They'll give you a small 0.5% discount off the price. They will also match any other price from any other dealer. So I recommend Gold Investments, and that's why I have my promo code with them. I did try to get a promo code a few years ago when viewers started asking where to buy from Atkinson's, but Paul Atkinson, I know him. He didn't want to do a promo code, so I promote more Gold Investments because I work closer with them. But Paul Atkinson is good as well. Atkinson's Bullion. Those are the two that I like. But if you want to help the channel, yeah, go to Gold Investments and use Monaco64 promo code. Urban Sombrero, thank you for your super chat. Is there pressure not to take exchange for physical arbitrage on authorized participants? How high do premiums have to go before we see more of this? What are you asking? Whether like the big players in the gold and silver market are taking delivery on COMEX and then trying to sell it in the retail market for, in silver, you could buy it at 26 and sell it to refiners maybe at 30. People are buying at 37. Yes, I think that's going to continue to put a lot of pressure on the supply in the paper market, on COMEX, and also GLD and ETF. We're already seeing the supply drain away from GLD and SLV while the price is going up, and also because retail investors are starting to realize, because of the silver squeeze movement, Wall Street silver. I think since February, awareness has been raised a lot, and there's a lot more people now realizing that they don't really own physical gold and silver if they have the ETFs. So what they're doing is they're selling off their ETFs and they're starting to buy physical. And I think it's going to put a lot of pressure on these authorized dealers. They'd be silly not to arbitrage and make a profit there, and that's only going to, I think, get prices a lot higher of the paper market. And if that doesn't happen, the paper market is going to become irrelevant. COMEX, LBMA, it could become irrelevant. Music lover. Cornwall is beautiful, and the property prices are crazy low. Yeah, we've been to Cornwall years ago a couple of times on holiday with the family. It's really nice, Cornwall. I like Cornwall. Yeah. Trip Babbitt. Glint seems to charge 10% on their gold. Other ideas that we could use to buy gold and silver hold outside the US. I don't think Glint are charging 10%. They charge about 1 to 1.5 or even 2% over spot. I don't think they charge 10%. Glint. They don't do silver, they just do gold though. Uh, buy and hold outside the US. Well, gold investments in London, you can buy from, you can call them from anywhere in the world. They do have their own vaults in the city of London. Yeah, gold investments. There's a link to their website in the description of all my videos. And they have a website. You can call them on the phone. You can talk to Oliver or Simon Temple there. I've been dealing with gold investments since 2002. I started talking to them when Oliver and Simon's dad was around, Mike Temple. He's retired now, and they've taken over. What is the word for that? You told us in the other video. It starts with an A. What is the word for what? Super Seamster? What are you talking about? Be a little more specific. Oh, I think you mean arbitrage, isn't it? Yeah. Arbitrage. Arbitrage. So yeah, what is arbitrage? Well, it's when you have, let's say you've got IBM stock. Let's say it trades on the New York Stock Exchange, and then it trades on the San Francisco Exchange. And then let's say there was an exchange in San Francisco. I don't think there is, but let's say the price, the prices were not the same. So you can take advantage of buying maybe IBM in San Francisco for $100 and selling it for $100.10 in New York. So those opportunities don't last very long because there are people watching these discrepancies all the time. They're called arbitrageurs. I guess it's a French word. And what arbitrageurs do is they close these gaps, but they make money by closing these gaps. But nowadays with electronic trading, that's quite difficult to do. But it used to be a lot easier when markets were open outcry and on exchanges with real people. You could even maybe arbitrage in the gold pits, in the COMEX, different traders. Sometimes you could arbitrage, but now it's all done on the screens. Gordon Hamilton, thank you for your super chat. Looks like they're watching the little guy. Dealers are asking for photo ID for orders over 5,000. Would you comply with their request or ignore it and change to another dealer? Yeah, I don't think Gold Investments would ask you for that. I think they might ask for 10,000, but not 5,000. I don't think there's a new rule in the UK. So if you have a problem with that and you don't like that, yeah, call Gold Investments. They're really private, and they're not going to ask you for something they don't need. But they probably will ask you for something over 10,000 though. Lord Humongous says, we love you, Super Seamster. Yeah, we do. Oh, I usually, these days, we're not really using cash that much, but I took some cash out yesterday, and I wanted to talk a little bit about one of the reasons why I woke up to the fraudulent monetary system that we have. And it was about 15 years ago, maybe a little longer, when I was working in the city. Uh, I went out of the office to get my lunch. In the city, most of the time, you go buy your lunch and you come back and you sit at your desk and you eat and you keep working. You know, if you're eating and the client's calling, you put your food down, pick up the client, do an order, hopefully, and then you start eating again. But anyway, um, I was coming back from buying some lunch, and I was putting change back in my wallet, and I just took out a 20-pound note. It was a bit bigger at the time. These new notes are a bit smaller. And then I saw, the promise to pay the bearer on demand here. We still have these on the note here, if you can see. Let's see. So it says, I promise, take my glasses off. I promise to pay the bearer on demand the sum of 20 pounds. So there you go. Um, there you go. I saw that, and it just clicked. What are they going to pay us with? And because you can't go to the bank anymore and ask for a fixed weight of gold, you can't convert this into 20 gold sovereigns, because that's what it used to be. Each pound was a gold sovereign. And I thought to myself, it's amazing that they keep this promise there, and it's an empty promise. And then I decided to phone the Bank of England, because it's their note, it's their promise, right? And I called their press office, the number, and I said, I want to speak to someone about the banknotes. And then this guy came on the phone, very nice guy, and I asked him, you say that you promised to pay the bearer on demand the sum of 20 pounds. And I said, 20 pounds of what? And he said, well, all it means is that you can bring an old note to the Bank of England, and we'll give you a new one. And I said to the guy, why don't you write that then? Why do you say you promise to pay the bearer on demand? Why don't you say we promise to replace this note if it's damaged with a new one? So yeah, I knew then that things were really not honest, that the system was fraudulent. And this was around 2004 and 5. And at the time, I had started buying gold and silver already. And I used to speak to some of my colleagues at work that cared to listen to me about this situation. And I said, the system is going to implode because of this. And then another guy heard me say that, and he said, oh, you're crazy. What are you talking about? And then, of course, 5 years later, everything collapsed. They had to throw the kitchen sink into the system in 08, 09. And it's because of this. And it's very simple. But most people don't want to know. Most people, I guess, are not like me. They see things and they ask questions. Mark Gutierrez, thank you for your super chat. So just wanted to tell you guys that story. I've told that story quite a few times in the last few years, but of course, always get new viewers. Sorry for those who have heard the story already, but it's always nice sometimes to talk about these things again. Mark Gutierrez says there's only 100 thumbs up and there's 600 people. Yeah, that's not good. We need more thumbs up, even though it's fine. It helps, but it's not the end all. Bingo J. So let's go to the, because this was quite interesting in this book here, A History of Central Banking. Because most people think, when they think of the Middle Ages, they think it was really bad times. But he talks here on page 25, the glorious Middle Ages. So there you go, the glorious Middle Ages. So with the banishment of the moneylenders and the abolition of usury, usury, sorry. Taxes were moderate, and there was no state debt, so no government debt during the Middle Ages. As the interest-free tally stick. Tally stick is quite interesting. We'll go over it here now. Was used for government expenditures. This ancient instrument of finance, known to the Saracens and possibly also to the Chinese, is derived from the Latin word talia, meaning a stick. A tally stick was made out of hazel, willow, or boxwood because these woods split easily. So am I saying we're gonna have to go back to tally sticks? No, I'm just giving you the history of how there was very little debt back then, and they found a system that worked. They were usually 8 inches in length, 20.3 centimeters from forefinger to thumb, and half an inch or 1.3 centimeters wide, although they could be up to 8 feet long. The denominations were indicated by different sized cuts in the woods. 1,000 pounds were marked by cutting out the thickness of the palm of a hand, 100 pounds by the breadth of the little finger. A pound would be of a swelling barley corn. Shillings, somewhat less, and pence were marked by incisions. So these tally sticks were issued by the sovereign, of course, the king or the queen. The payee was recorded on the flat sides. When all the details had been recorded on the tally, it was split nearly to the bottom so that one part retained the stump or handle on which a hole would be bored. This was known as the counter tally or counterfoil and was held on a rod at the exchequer. Well, that's the finance minister, exchequer. Benoit Guillou, what do you think of that Harry Dent guy? I don't think much of him. That's all I have to say about that. Harry Dent. Harry Dents, maybe. Okay. The flat strip without the stump was given to the payee. As no two pieces of wood were identical, it was impossible to forge a tally stick. Tally sticks were first introduced during the reign of King Henry II, 1100 to 1135, and would remain in circulation until 1783. It was, however, during the period of between 1290 and 1485 that tallies would reach their apogee and constitute the principal means of state finance. Tallies were used not only to pay state salaries, but to finance major items of infrastructure, such as construction of the wall of the City of London, public buildings, and ports. The exact amount of tallies in circulation is not known, but as late as 1694, 17 million worth were still in existence. This was a prodigious sum, as the king's annual budget rarely exceeded 2.5 million pounds, and the laborer earned a penny a day. Rama Bangad, as gold prices go up, will the difference between spot gold and GLD increase? I don't really follow GLD. What I think is going to increase is the difference between the price that you pay for real gold and the spot price. The spot price is an artificial price. It's similar to the futures price. That's what is going to increase. GLD price, I don't follow that. The thing about Dent, and I was just joking about Dent. No, the guy's name is Harry Dent. Is that he seems to forget that in the 1930s, the dollar was as good as gold before FDR made it illegal, and gold price was revalued up during the Depression. He seems to forget about that. He forgets that we are under a fiat currency system where the amount of currency is unlimited. They can print it as much as they want, and they're doing it. So yeah, gold could go to 600, but then the Dow would probably be at 600. Everything would implode. Gold will still hold its purchasing power, but I think it will be at a lot higher prices because the central bankers are going to try to keep, they're going to keep inflating it. So here this tally sticks. Show you a picture. There are the tally sticks. So that's what was used to, instead of borrowing money from the central banks or bankers, the king used to issue these tally sticks. That was used, and you couldn't copy it because they were all different, and each tally stick had a different value. So it worked well. And the interesting thing is that the people during the Middle Ages had a very good life. According to this book, it says, with tolerable taxes, no state debt, and no interest to pay, England enjoyed a period of unparalleled growth and prosperity. The average laborer worked for only, wait for this, can you imagine having a 14-week working year? So the average laborer worked only 14 weeks and enjoyed 160 to 180 holidays. So I think every other day was a saint's day, and they had holidays and festivals. According to Lord Leverhulme, a writer at the time, the men of the 15th century were very well paid. In fact, so well paid that the purchasing power of their wages and their standard of living would only be exceeded in the late 19th century. A laborer could provide for all the necessities his family required. They were well clothed in good woolen cloth and had plenty of meat and bread. So there you go. Who would have thought that the Middle Ages were a great time? And I think I had heard about that before, but I hadn't covered it in the channel. So I hopefully you guys enjoyed that. I think all the discussion about the gold price is kind of irrelevant because it's like we were maybe 4 or 5 years ago, if we were Venezuelans doing live stream and talking about, oh, are we going to buy gold at 14,000 bolivars? Oh no, I'm going to wait until it gets to 8,000. And it did. But then, when it went back up to 14,000, say, oh, I'm going to get out now. And then 2 years later, it was 300 million. I think that's how we have to look at gold and silver. They're not, we can't think anymore of the fiat value because we don't really want to exchange it for fiat. We might have to if we want to get into another asset as the bridge, but I don't think, I think it's the most dangerous thing is to hold a lot of fiat currency now. And why do I say that? Well, because we're seeing a lot of signs of rising prices. It's actually, people are calling it inflation, but it's actually prices, because rising prices are the consequence of inflation. And by now, I guess you guys have heard me say this, I don't know, thousands of times, that inflation is the increase in the supply of money and credit out of thin air, resulting in higher prices. But this is what we're seeing now. Look at this, soaring lumber prices add $36,000 to the cost of a new home, and the fierce land grab is only making it worse. So the other thing that's happening is that we're seeing stories that there is lumber out there. There isn't a shortage. So why is that happening? There's things that there's no shortage of, but the prices are going up. the producers are withholding uh, the goods. I think it's because people are coming to the realization that the central banks and governments, they've basically crossed the Rubicon. They will never be able to unwind all this large ass of monetary and fiscal policy. There are people who think that there's going to be quantitative tightening. Well, I can tell these people who think there will be quantitative tightening that they're deluded, or not deluded, but they're dreaming. They can try to do even unwinding the balance sheet or tapering the QE. That's going to lead to a total implosion of the system. So yeah, and I think even some people in the general public, investors, more and more investors are realizing that. And the fact that you get no return on your money by buying bonds or investing is basically uh, getting people to just spend the money because they don't want to hold on to it. I think it's starting. The old saying, anything but dollars. And the other thing as well, we're seeing all these stimulus checks flowing every 6 months, and some people who have good jobs, they're getting thousands and thousands of dollars, and they're just spending it because they probably know that they're going to get some more. And I think that's really bad, and that's why I think it's really dangerous to hold any excess fiat currency, be it dollars, pounds, or euros, Aussie dollars, any of the fiat currencies for a very long period of time. Of course, sometimes you need to keep a bit of a reserve for bills, and maybe if you want to do something, a project, to redecorate your house or do some building work. Yes, you keep a little extra, but over more than 6 or 12 months, I think it's dangerous. Joshua Porter, thank you for your super chat. Besides gold, silver, wine, are there any other physical investments that are good to hold in one's possession? Well, this watch here, it's a Rolex Explorer 2. Well, yeah, I've had this since 2003. And I paid 2,200 pounds for it. And now a secondhand price for that is 7,000 pounds. I don't plan to sell it. I love this watch. Yeah, nice Swiss watches they hold their value. Yes, they're quite overvalued now, but I actually think they're not. Their high prices is a reflection the fact that the currency is becoming worth less and less. So yeah, what else holds its value? Well, I think real estate holds its value, not for speculation, but yes, a home, a land, farmland will always be worth something uh, during a currency collapse. Anything that's you can touch, I think, is pretty much holds its value. It's just a matter of what's liquid or not. Gold and silver, well, gold is the most liquid asset, really, and that's why it's money. Of course, how can I say, watches, like it would take a while for me if I wanted to try to sell this, maybe take a month or so. Gold, you can just call the dealer and you sell it. It's a matter of liquidity, right? How quickly you can cash that asset. Land, the same in real estate. It's not as liquid, but it holds its value. You need to decide, um, what you want. If you want a bit of liquidity, yeah, have gold and silver. If you're not too concerned about liquidity, hold some fine wine or whiskey, like Jim Diggs is saying, or nice watches, or even used cars now are going up. Well, I'm just kidding, but like collector's items as well. But you have to realize they're not as liquid. Sander 81, 1981, Schwab wants all the assets. Yeah, Klaus Schwab says we're all going to be happy not owning anything. We're all going to be happy renting. My question is, if you're renting, someone has to own it, right? And that's going to be Klaus Schwab. Yeah, literally robbing. Yeah, that's the thing about holding a gold or silver coin for the first time is you don't realize how heavy they are because the coins that we have nowadays they're like really not that chunky, are they? Fine bourbon and cigar. Yeah, got to make sure you have a humidor for your cigars or smoke them. Mark, with a K, what can you tell us about the origins of the central bank and stock exchange in Amsterdam? Um, yeah, I have looked into that. I'm not as familiar with the Dutch. I think there was a Bank of Amsterdam where they actually, what happened in Holland is that they decided it was quite clever because there's a lot of different coins circulating, silver and gold. So what they decided to do, this Bank of Amsterdam, they basically said you can store your coins with us, and we're going to issue notes backed by these coins, and they wouldn't lend. They didn't lend. It was just a depository, so that made it easier for the coins, well, the coin substitutes to circulate, and it increased liquidity. But it wasn't like a bank where they yeah, it was just a deposit bank, so it didn't lend that money, so there wasn't a danger of bank runs with the Bank of Amsterdam. That Bank of Amsterdam, that's what I know about it, but I think I might be wrong, but I think eventually they started lending, and that's where the problem started. And yeah, the Dutch have a long history of trading because it's Holland, the Netherlands is a nation with a small nation with that not that many resources, and they're by the sea, so they were traders. So yeah, I think they even had options on the tulips during the tulip mania. They traded options, the Dutch. So yeah, the Dutch have been trading things for hundreds of years. Roger Coles asking about the gold silver ratio. Well, yeah, the gold silver ratio, usually when there's a bull market in precious metals, silver outperforms and the ratio drops. Yeah, in the last 50 years, it hasn't really gone. I think the mean has been around 50. Yes, I think in 2011 it went down to around 30. I think though this time we could see it test that 30 level. We could go back to 15 to 1, which is historically the right level. Some people like Keith Neumeyer of First Majestic, he's actually said that there's only 8 times more silver underground than there's gold. So he actually thinks that ratio should be lower even than 15 to 1. And does that mean I'm going to only silver? No, it just means that I'm going to probably try to be buying more silver right now than gold because silver is undervalued. Fast Daddy, please tell Wall Street Silver to take down the billboards because there's no silver and people are going to be uh, pissed off. Mm. Well, it's a that's like a difficult that's a bit of a dilemma because we want to try to encourage people to buy physical silver. Yeah, I think eventually there will be supply of silver will come to the market, but it will be at a lot higher prices. Grow Mechanic says that Keith Neumeyer now is saying it's 7 to 1, so that's dropped. by, I guess, one eighth, which is about 12%. Ben, what do you think will happen with the banks with the huge debts they're holding governments against? We know what happened in '08. Yeah, eventually, I think governments and taxpayers can't keep bailing out the banks, because that's what we've been doing since '08. This is not to bail out Main Street, even though in the last crisis, yeah, governments have bailed out Main Street, but it wasn't the fault of Main Street. It was the fault of governments, because they locked everyone up. But in '08, it was, excuse me, it was the fault of the banks, because they leveraged too much. They lost money. So next time, I think it will be curtains for the bankers, because I think people are sick and tired. I hope, at least we are, of having to finance bankers when they lose money, and then when they make money, they keep the profits, and we don't see anything. Brandon Smith, I agree with you. It's the dollar that drops, fiat currencies drop. Gold and silver, they just keep their purchasing power, but there will be a period, I think, that where you will be able to get a lot more than just the purchasing power of gold and silver, because everything will be so out of whack. And that's why it's so important to have physical gold and silver, because if you don't have the real thing, you won't be able to take advantage of this out of whackness period, so to speak. Yeah, Mark with a K. I'm not too familiar with the first stock exchange of Amsterdam. What I'm familiar with is that a lot of the stock trading back in those days started out in coffee houses. People just started doing business, in the coffee shops. I think coffee was a new thing that came from. I think it came from Turkey, and people used to do business in the coffee houses. But apart from that, I'd have to look up into the. I haven't really looked into the particular history of the Amsterdam Stock Exchange. Sorry. What's in the cup? Water. It's just finished. Just water. We've got this filter for the water. I think it's called Brivac. It's and you have to change it every month. So you put the tap water in a bottle, and there's a filter in it, and in that filter there's a lot of silver. So there you go, another use for silver. Rumpelstiltskin, you're welcome. You're welcome. Hope you're doing well in Japan, Rumpelstiltskin. Um, Super Seamster, they stole 193 billion gold from Gaddafi. Yeah, they did. Uh, and I think Gaddafi had a bank account with Goldman Sachs, and that money is gone as well. I think Gaddafi also, his son went to the London School of Economics. There was he endowed the London School of Economics. He became friends with Tony Blair, and they stabbed him in the back. It's amazing. I'm not, and Gaddafi, I think he had his little green book. And Libya was the wealthiest country in Africa before Gaddafi got kicked out and murdered. I think they had a $14,000 per capita income. I think every young couple in Libya, when they got married, got given $50,000 from the state to buy their own house. Very good education system, everything free. Well, by free, I mean it was paid by the state. And the state, of course, owned the oil industry, and it worked really well. The Libyans had a very high standard of living, and now Libya has been, it's probably like I haven't really looked too much into it, but it's basically a failed state, unfortunately. And the fact that Libya was quite prosperous, it stopped all the migrants coming through North Africa into Europe. And that just screwed everything up. And it's crazy. And Gaddafi also wanted to start this gold currency, the gold dinar, so to do business with the rest of Africa. And yeah, the central bankers couldn't have that, could they? They also didn't like the fact that Libyans didn't have any debt because you get married and you get $50,000 property from the state, and so there you go. Super Seamster, teach on Libya. Thank you for telling the truth. Yeah, I hadn't talked about Libya for a while, but I knew about this green book, this Gaddafi green book. Uh, I think what Gaddafi did is, yeah, some people would say, oh, that's fascism, the state looking after everyone. But at least, you know, he did something to help the people there. And unfortunately, that's gone out the window. Eric Hoffner, no, I don't have any platinum. Yes, it is a precious metals, but my focus is more on the, how can I say, monetary metals. And that's not to say that I don't think platinum is not going to do well either. So because I think it will, and it's broken out from just above $1,000. So we've been here for over, yeah, we got a few. I'll take a few more questions from you guys before we sign off. Roger Coles, is 35 kilos physical a good start? Is that of silver? Um, I mean, 35 kilos, that's what, that's, yeah, that is a very good start. That's over 1,000 ounces. Yeah, that's definitely a good start if you can buy 35 kilos. I would try to average out. I know the prices are going up, but don't go in all at once. Or is it 35 kilos of gold? And then you're doing well if you can buy that much. Oh yeah, someone talking about Lockerbie. Yeah, I could go into that, but I'm not going to. I kind of agree with you there, Walking Wardrobe. Yeah, if you think there is inflation, hit the thumbs up. Yeah, if you don't think there isn't inflation, don't do anything. Okay, thank you everyone again for showing up for the live stream. If you're new to the channel, if you enjoyed the live stream, I do make a video every day. Today I made a video this morning as well, which is unusual. But yeah, make sure you think about subscribing. And yeah, thanks for showing up again, everyone. Thanks for all the questions, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.